Welcome to The Piv Out with Rocio, the podcast. A podcast about the juxtaposition between emotional and mental stability during your season of pivouting. I am so happy and thankful you're here. I'm beyond excited to connect. Make sure you have something to take notes because here we're going to school. Hello. Hi, my people. Thank you so much for tuning in to, I believe this is episode 4 of The Piv Out with Rocio, the podcast. I am so excited about today's episode. Before we get into the episode, the holidays are officially in full swing this week. It is Thanksgiving week. I will be doing some traveling. I actually am so proud of myself. I'm ahead of the game. Put up the Christmas tree this weekend with Sophie, put up all the Christmas decorations. I actually went and bought artificial. I don't like the word fake. I've always had a real tree. And now as a single mom, I've realized, and even before, it has nothing to do with being a single mom actually, so I should retract that. But real trees are beautiful. They smell nice, but damn, they are so much work. Like the pines and I believe it's called the moss, the sticky stuff, and then making sure it stays alive, and then making sure that your branches don't fall. And then if you put it up for Thanksgiving, which I usually do, is it really going to last? And the fact that we are traveling this year for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, and I just didn't want to have to do this all on my own, and as well as like clean up the pines. Anyway, I'm rambling, but Christmas decorations are up and the holidays are in full swing. Because for me, and I don't know for you, but once we're planning for Thanksgiving, that's it. It's a wrap, kid. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, and it's the new year, which is funny because at this time of year, I start seeing everyone kind of start transitioning and people start getting ready to set their New Year's resolutions. And I've never been one to set those. I think I have done vision board workshops. I have done all those things. And ironically, every time I did a vision board, everything on my vision board, I wouldn't say, okay, maybe not everything, 95% of anything I put on my vision board, whether it was a career opportunity, a trip, a investment, whatever, always came to fruition. My vision boards are married with a lot of circle prayering, prayer circling, however you want to say that. If you don't know what circling your prayer 7 times is, I would Google it. Of course, you can send me a DM. I would be happy to kind of give you more information about that. There's some great books, but as I've been transparent about on the podcast before, I am huge on prayer. I am huge on visualization. I am huge on manifestation. To me, they all really do come down to serious intent and prayer. Not a wish list, not a I want, not a this is going to be a magical thing. It's just a deeper relationship that I have with God that I recommend to anyone listening. Anyway, as always, sidebar. So I was saying that I always find it interesting at this time of year that people set these New Year's resolutions and they, you usually, again, people use the example of you go to the gym and everyone's working out at the top of the year and it's like the first 2 weeks of January. Everyone's at the gym going hard. 3rd week, it's starting to dwindle down. You get into February and boom. Everyone has forgotten their New Year's resolutions and all the goals they've set. And I wanted to share with you something today before we get into the episode that I started doing a few years back. And it replaces setting goals and setting resolutions for a new year. It's really, for me, been a shift, a pivot in the mind where I have now started to address what I guess would be seen as goals as a standard. Goals is always a thing. It's hashtag goals in relationships of love and self and business. And I too, as I said, have partakes. But in my serious planning sessions, I would rather not only set a standard, but make sure I live to a certain standard. When you set a goal, if you think about it, what happens? You get to your goal. Let's say you set the goal to lose 20 pounds, 50 pounds, 30 pounds. What happens when you hit that goal? Do you stop? Do you maintain? Do you lose more weight? Do you gain weight? Do you set a new goal? Or do you set a standard to live by? And that is, for me, what fires me up. Nonetheless, that's just a little tip. And, you guys can address how you go about your goal setting and your envisioning however you wish. But for me, it's definitely about living up to a certain and specific standard at all times. In the season of thankfulness that we are in the season of going into the holidays, in the season of being thankful, which I have my own opinions on Thanksgiving and how it was born, which I won't get into because that's a whole nother podcast, but also in the season of the holiday that celebrates, for me as a Christian, the birth of Jesus. We are in a state of thankfulness. And in that, let's be thankful for the ability to identify people and their behavioral patterns. Did you see that transition? You don't have to be a psychologist to identify what today's topic will be about. Before I get into today's topic, if you noticed, I have a sore throat. I officially have an ear infection as an adult, which of course is dealt with by basically kind of getting over it. I was prescribed antibiotics. It's not something I like taking, so I haven't taken them. And the doctor was kind enough to say, you can either take a leave or something for the pain and it will go away. So here we are. Hopefully my voice does not annoy you. I am not in any pain. I just sound like I am. With that said, let's get into today's episode. It's not new to you or the world, but the saying, when people show you who they are, believe them, rings so true. In full transparency and honesty, I did not have this episode planned or scheduled. I actually had a different topic that I wanted to discuss, but there have been some current events that have taken place in my life that, from a personal and professional level, that really continue to have this saying resonate with me. When people show you who they are, believe them. And then, to no irony at all, Mel Robbins, who is one of the, would you call her a motivational speaker? She kind of is just like, tells you what it is, doesn't tell you anything you don't know, kind of serving you the facts. Has a series or had a series on Instagram, and it's called Let Them Be. So let them be married with the current events in my life, with when people show you who they are, believe them, being a quote or a theory or a saying that I always live by, is the episode I'm serving today. A standard for me in my life, and you'll hear this a lot on the podcast super often, is checking in with myself. How does this event, how does this person, how does the situation make me feel? Especially as I establish not only my surroundings, but the people I allow in them. Something I wanted to dissect a little bit today is how that statement affects us both personally and professionally. Though it's true that how we identify and address this topic can be totally different depending on the setting. What does that mean? Obviously, in a professional setting or a personal setting, when you identify that someone isn't living up to how they have presented themselves to be, your reaction and responses can't necessarily be the same as they would be in a personal setting. That being said, even though professional and personal settings, in identifying if someone really is who they are, cannot be handled the same many times, the self-identification work, the work that I just went through about how does this make me feel, how does this resonate with me, is the same. As for Rocio, yes, I'm speaking of myself in third person. I tell myself I live by recognize, reflect, release, and reset. Recognize, reflect, release, and reset. There's so many other R's that you can put in there. You can add rest. You can add remove. You can add so many things in there. But for me, these 4 R's, recognize, reflect, release, reset, have always worked. I use this pattern of work, this mantra, whatever you want to call it, in various areas of life. When someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? So if I'm in the recognition phase, let's talk about on a personal, intimate level. Let's set the tone. You start dating and you're getting to know someone. It's all very new. It's all very fresh. And for instance, this person, and I'll use a personal example for me. This person starts talking about a past relationship with an ex or with a friend. Take a moment in these conversations as you're getting to know someone to observe how this person not only has responded to past situations, but also is communicating these situations to you. For instance, and I'm going to edit the story a bit just for the sake of my personal life and this person's personal character. But I'm in my early 20s and I was dating a guy, really good looking, seemed super nice, had a good job, which at that age, that's literally the minimal requirements as I was dating. I was in a stage where I was still learning to determine, what do I want? Nonetheless, we're on our 3rd date, maybe 4th date, and he starts talking about his mom. And he starts to talk about the fact that they hadn't spoken in years, saying that they don't speak to one another. And then the conversation led to not only him not speaking to his mother, but then he starts talking about the mother of his child. How, basically the description was they don't have a great relationship, making a comment, saying something to the extent, if something happened to her, he could really care less. A few weeks later, I realized that we had a conversation about friendships. And, again, you're in this dating phase, you're getting to know, you're learning about each other. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm an overanalyzer. Maybe I just am beyond observant. But I started to realize that this person had very little friends, if any. And then while we were dating, he had a friend that he completely cut off for one reason or another. To me, the reasoning deserved a conversation. It deserved a sit down. This was a friendship that seemed, from what I understood, to have been a pretty long friendship, and it deserved a bigger conversation. Again, I'm not saying this guy was an asshole. I'm not saying any of these things. This is as it pertains to this podcast subject. And it's an example that I want to share from a personal perspective so that you understand how in an intimate setting, you can so easily continue to allow someone to reveal who they are and still not want to believe it. Did I see huge red flags in the moment? Probably not. But you have to, not you, you have to understand, sometimes red flags are dressed in a niceness sandwich, smothered in, I would never do that to you, gravy energy. You get me? So it's this thought of like, this person is capable of doing all these things, but he would never do that to me. So that's that niceness sandwich smothered in that I would never do that to you energy, especially when the energy is married with the words of, no, but I would never do that to you. Fast forward a few months, we had a disagreement. Probably we're dating a while, probably 9-10 months. We had a disagreement and I never heard from him again. It went from I love yous to a dead line in a matter of minutes. It went from a date where I love yous were said, and then we never spoke again. But as I was preparing myself for this episode, why didn't I prepare myself as much as you can prepare yourself for this result? As I was preparing myself for this episode, I said in a reflective mode, why didn't I prepare myself kind of for what was expected? I mean, this person was showing me who he was the entire time. Why did I think that I would be any different? Why did I think that his loyalty to me or this new situationship relationship would be any deeper than his loyalty to his mother or the mother of his child? So it made me think and made me really say someone's history of behavior, whether like in this case, he had the ability to be inconsistent with his commitment to his mother or a commitment to the mother of his child, should have been a huge red flag. And it definitely should have provided me with major insight into this person's character. Instant behavioral patterns should be a huge, like, alarm, alarm, alarm. That is a red flag. These red flags should help you see if you're walking into a situationship, relationship, friendship that cannot be trusted in the future. Of course, now it's 20 years later and I look back and I'm like, damn, like the signs were all there and we do it at any age. But the ability to observe someone's behavioral patterns, especially over time, and paying attention to how this person behaves consistently, no matter what the setting is key. It's key to allowing yourself to be in a position to decipher between, is this a bad day or is this a wrong match? You get what I'm saying? Like those are two huge opposite sides of the spectrum. So when you allow yourself to be in a space where you say, I'm going to observe because I too am a lover of love. You know, at times especially when I was younger, it's like you can't help but think of falling into a situation, a relationship, and the future of it. You know, now as an adult, I try to professionally and personally take situations and kind of be more observant, which is not my natural personality. But putting yourself in a position to be more observant and to pay more attention to someone's consistent behavioral patterns is a plus. That is what's going to allow you, like I said, to decipher between, is this person just having a bad day? Is this a bad moment? Is it a response to something? Or is this just not the match for me? I noticed as we continued dating that what was initially presented to me as like kindness and I say quote unquote honesty and support started to feel more like shortness, dishonesty, and inconsistency. You got to take note of these patterns and more importantly, take these patterns seriously. Trust me, it's hard. You know why? Because many times you say to yourself, nah, it's a bad day, or she was just responding to a certain situation or an encounter. Or, you know what, for me, and it's not to toot my own horn or make me a better person than anyone else, but it's like, no, why would anyone be like that? Like, why would people be like that? But no, please see these patterns and go back to the thought process of observing the behavior. And when people show you who they are, believe them. It's like even in the workplace, right? You're interviewing for a job and you interview with various people. Either you're going to work with them, you're going to report into them, they're going to report into you, right? And at the beginning, everyone is cool. Everything seems cool. You're filling all these buckets and you're checking off all the lists, and so are they, because as you're being interviewed, you're interviewing, right? So when you're in a state of recognizing in a professional environment, and that's the beginning, that's the honeymoon phase that I just described in this dating scenario that I gave you. So in the workplace, it's the same thing. You have this honeymoon stage, and that's usually the onboarding phase. That's the first 3-4 months. But an easy space to recognize how someone really is when there's some sort of conflict that occurs. what are coworkers' tendencies when a conflict is brewing? And we all know when conflict is brewing. I remember when I worked for Puff that we had a huge marketing meeting, and I won't, again, I won't divulge it because it's not important to the story. But we were meeting with a huge partner, and before the meeting, everyone on the team had expressed their frustrations with, how can I say this, Puff's lack of desire to be a partner, for instance, or the fact that for me, I had become the only person on the marketing team when we had 8, we went to 6, we were at 4. Now we're doing this huge marketing push and this marketing campaign for this partnership, and it was just me. Previous to the meeting, I had sat with other team members, and it was like we were all clear. We were all on the same page. Everyone was like, yeah, he's tripping, he's bugging, blah, blah, blah. We get into this meeting. Mind you, these are huge bigwig CEOs, chairmen of our company. Puff was there, as well as the sister company we were working with. And, whatever mood he was in, he came in super aggressive, super like, this isn't it. I presented the campaign strategy that we had all agreed upon, and it was basically like an attack on me. It's funny, sidebar, there were probably 3 occasions that I definitely thought I was going to get fired. Different occasions in my 4.5-year time period working with Puff. I didn't, thank God. But this was one of them where I found myself in a position where I had to use my voice. But I say all this to say that nobody else had my back that day. Everyone prior to the meeting was on the same page. And in the moment, nobody had my back. And it was one of those moments for me professionally and in my life where it was like, oh, wow, okay, cool. That's how we doing. And it's this fine line, especially professionally, where I get it. Everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs to feed their families. But there are situations where right is right. And I will always do my best to be on the side that is right. I mean, I'll share another story. We were launching the furniture line at Ed, which is Ellen DeGeneres' line. And it had been requested that the furniture all be shipped to LA and set up in the studio lot, which is essentially where Ellen records. Immediately, I said, this is a bad idea. Mind you, I was the one who brought in all of the partners. I was the one who worked with design to have the product approved. I was the one who worked with sales. I was the one who worked with. So I was very intimately involved with all aspects of the product. Nonetheless, the thought of having over $35 million worth of furniture. This is furniture. This is not clothing. This is not shoes. Of furniture shipped to LA to set up in a studio lot. Okay. If you don't know what a studio lot is, basically a big open warehouse that has nothing to it. So we need to make our best impression of this furniture in a huge empty space. That is not a good idea. Team agrees. Everyone's on board. Ellen is insistent. CEO of the company rides it out. Shits on all of us. Get there. Ellen sees the furniture. Mind you, this is looking at furniture. How can you get a good idea of anything? How can you get a good idea of a product that could potentially be gorgeous when it's in the environment that it just is not going to make sense? I had suggested, we were doing a photo shoot, and I had suggested, let's set it up. Let's stage this house. Multi-million-dollar house, Hollywood Hills. And everyone agreed. And when it came down to it, nobody had my back when it was my time to present this as an option. Fast forward, Ellen's unhappy, disapproves everything. We have to pivot, and we end up setting up and having her revisit into the home in the Hollywood Hills. Furniture is set up, lighting is set up, rugs is set up, plating is set up, everything is set up in an actual home. So she gets to open the door and walk into an experience. Completely different. Energies shift, energies change. Once again, nobody had my back. Nobody patted me on the back. Nothing productive came from it. So I share these and I share pieces of it. Obviously, there's teams of people. Obviously, I didn't do any of these things by myself. I will never be someone who is not a team player. But these are professional examples of times in my life where it was so clear to me about certain characteristics of certain characters of people that I was forced to work with due to the professional environments. Remember, yes, we are in a professional environment. I was in a professional environment, but people will be who they are at all times. Someone who confronts an issue directly is open to constructive solutions is someone that is mature and wants to work together. Someone that has your back, that is going to have your back. The same goes for the opposite. Sometimes you come to the realization that no one is going to have your back and you're on your own. Make note of the people in your professional environments. And many of these points go for personal as well. Those type of people who blame others or, for instance, manipulate situations, those are characteristics to stay away from. That is not a reliable coworker. That is not a reliable person. There are so many layers to this topic. And one thing I cannot emphasize enough is to pay attention to how people communicate, especially under pressure. I remember I had a boyfriend that I knew was lying to me about where he had been. I already had all the intel. You heard me. I had all the intel. I had all the witnesses. I had the place. I'm going to find out. I'm going to get the information. Nonetheless, when I set up the conversation and I tried to be, non-confrontational, especially when I already knew the truth. But essentially, I was offering the opportunity for this person to be honest. He stared at me and lied for over 30 minutes, then decided to confess and even brought out the waterworks. Said he knew how I felt about this particular crew and this particular situation, knew it would not be good for our relationship. He promised and promised and promised that he wouldn't find himself in a space like this again and committed to doing so much better. I know you've been there, but you tell me, I'm in my early 20s and it doesn't even matter what age. We all fall victim to the words, to the questioning if someone could really be or is someone really who they are. But it's a matter of how we get up. So please understand that. Nonetheless, the tears, the promises, the words, what would I have done? What would you have done? So you're asking yourself, what did I do? Okay, so this is Rocio, someone who knew the truth and allowed the lie to go on and on. What did I do? I gave him another chance. What else was I going to do? Come on. Only to have this same thing, the same issue. Essentially, it was a mirror of a situation happen and come up again a few months later. So this is where the stage of reflection comes in, right? So we recognize we're reflecting, and before we release, take a minute to think about and potentially evaluate the reasons behind why am I feeling this way. When you're in that reflection stage, let's think about, am I doing too much? Without allowing yourself to be gaslit. Is this me? Could I be part of this problem? Identifying specific elements that contribute to what has become a negative environment, such as a toxic relationship, the possibility of lack of growth opportunities, professionally in that sense, poor management. When you can sit and think about, why is it that I'm feeling this way? this will provide clarity and it will help you describe, discuss, articulate your reasons for leaving, the desire to leave, or guiding you into searching for a healthier environment. Okay, so here I am a few months in. I'm in the reflection stage, and basically the exact same situation occurs. Same place, same friends, same lies, same cries. So I ask you, is this now my fault or is it this other person's fault? Am I now not only creating an environment for someone to not only be quote unquote who they are, which is not someone who aligns with me, but be extremely comfortable in that space? When someone has the ability to communicate honestly, clearly, respectfully, all the things, you automatically feel like an indication of trustworthiness. Now, think about this. The opposite. If someone is always on the defense, is always saying passive aggressive shit, they are yelling out, I am not a transparent person. I am not transparent. I am not a transparent person. So for me, when it comes to the stage of reflection, and now I'm speaking from a personal perspective, I know there's a lot of personal, professional, but as I was preparing for this episode, it's like there's so many similarities. But from a personal perspective, when someone shows me who they are and it's negative and not a good person, I'll let them go. No bullshit, no qualms about it. Now, can you always do this at a work or in a professional environment? Probably not. And that's where the tricky part happens. How do we navigate these waters? Here is where I would say when you recognize that there are some non-team players or narcissists or just assholes on your team, and we've all had them, we've all been there. No matter what their title is, no matter what your title is, I have seen, and it works, and would encourage an environment of open feedback where you and your colleagues and coworkers can share information about, others' behaviors. Obviously, it's how you communicate. Obviously, it's how you bring these things to the table. Now, real talk, does it always work? No. Why, in my opinion? Because we live in a world where there is a huge lack of self-awareness. And there's tons of egos leading the way. But the goal is a setting like this would be ideal. A setting like this is a place to gather information. A setting like this is also a place to see, like, what is it that your coworkers or people you work with are going through that is potentially bringing this to the table. Obviously, this isn't a therapy session, but there are a lot of times where these team builders that dig deeper can be very helpful. This way you can confirm and allow room to challenge not only someone else, but, and here we go, that's part of the self-work, challenge yourself. Challenge your understandings of someone else's character. I know this sounds very like medicalish and psychish and impossible, but with the right setups, it can work and it can be very refreshing. It can create a safe space at work. And it's like, think about it. I no longer work in a traditional corporate environment, for lack of a better word. But when you do, you spend most of your day with your coworkers. You spend most of your time interacting with people you work with. So why not identify and do the work to potentially create a better environment? Now we entering into the release phase of the when people show you who they are, believe them. So we have recognized, we have reflected, and we're about to get into the best part, which is releasing. This pertains to this topic and can be considered, when it comes to this topic, the now what stage. I've done the self-work, I've done the reflecting, I've done the recognition, and now how do I release? What do I do now? You've assessed your situation. You have now determined that this is not the person you imagine them to be, they describe themselves to be, they set themselves up to be. They are not who they painted themselves out to be. They are just not someone you want to have in your orbit. Again, in full transparency from a personal level, for me, it's easy to be like, peace, deuces, see ya. But what happens even on a personal level when this person is family or someone you just cannot get rid of or throw out? Again, in a professional environment, you may not be able to quit. You may not be ready to go. You may really love every other aspect of your job, the company, so many other things. So, what I would suggest, number one, you have to seek the support and start sniffing out possible new opportunities. Okay. So, this is a twofold. For me, I always believe in having a spare tire. I always believe in having a plan B. I always believe in having, hands in multiple fires, irons in multiple fires, etc. So, this first step in the release stage is seeking support while sniffing out possible new opportunities. Reach out to mentors, reach out to other coworkers, tap into professional networks, tap into previous professional networks. These things can potentially provide you some guidance, some support. Start building connections within other organizations. You never know what new opportunities and what insight can be provided that can lead to a positive work environment. Before deciding to leave entirely, I would say consider if there are other roles in other departments within your current organization that may provide, again, a more positive setting. Exploring a move that can be lateral, requesting a change of responsibilities. There's so many things that you can do that can allow you to still remain and not have to make such a life shift based on one person. I'm not a huge fan of this, but I know it works. I have a very great friend, Ileana. Shout out to Ileana, who is one of the senior people at LinkedIn. And participating in industry events and really networking, workshops, online communities, making sure you expand your network. This, by the way, is key at any stage in your career, at any stage in life. Expanding your networking, having people in different areas is huge. That's complete non sequitur and sidebar to when people show you who they are, believe them. Again, I don't love this, but I know, and I say I don't love this from a personal perspective. I have been in this field for a very long time. I have very strong relationships. I take pride in not only establishing, but maintaining and nurturing professional and personal relationships. But even with that, networking, this keyword networking is so damn important. It will allow you to at least have a feeling of options and safety. The same goes for personal. If you now found yourself in the releasing stage when it comes to a personal, intimate relationship or situation, you always have to make sure you surround yourself with a support system of friends, of family who, can, I want to say, help you navigate the emotional challenges that you're facing, these new things that are arising, especially after if it's going to result in a breakup, and just having friends and family present. Sometimes nothing needs to be said or shared. And there's a saying that says your presence is the present, and it's so true. I know that many female friendships, especially close female friendships, can seem and feel worse than a breakup with a sexual partner, a significant other. So being able to openly discuss your experiences with people, with friends, with family, with people you trust, it provides not only emotional support, but also can give you perspective. And it can help you just kind of process the feelings and in turn, you gain a lot of insight into the situation and how you got there and how you allowed it to be the song, or how you allowed the first, second, third red flag. Um, so it again, this is such a unique topic because the personal and professional situations and aha moments and reflections and ways to transition out can seem very similar, but a support system in seeking support and having those options is key. Number two in releasing is focus on you. Yes. Focus on you. Focus on your development. Focus on your growth. Professionally, I would use this release time to work on self-improvement. I would engage in activities that are workshops, certifications, courses, podcasts, TED Talks, things that enhance your skills. This will prepare you for your next role, but it also will boost your confidence. It will allow you to find yourself in a space where you're no longer that focused on this person and the feeling of being let down in a professional environment. Who knows? It may you now working on yourself, your own development may even spark a new career interest, a new interest in your career, a new role, a new path. You never, ever know. Focusing on your professional development as well as your personal development. This is this release stage. This is where you are transitioning into a period as it develops as an opportunity. This is going to be your opportunity for self-discovery, for personal growth, to engage in activities and discovering hobbies that bring you joy. Interests that you could have potentially neglected because you were, let's not forget, so invested in this person who has now shown you who they really are, who in turn is not someone that you want to continue investing in. So now let's 360 that and take that time we were investing, that cup we were pouring from, and let's invest in ourselves. Let's take time to have that self-care. By focusing on yourself, you will build resilience. And building resilience, now finding yourself in a situation where you have the ability and are more in tune, because of course we will fall victim plenty more in life, but now you have this experience, you have this armor, you have these abilities to identify when someone isn't presenting themselves as their most authentic self. And in turn, personally, it will prepare you for future relationships. And these future relationships will align more closely into your moral, ethical, and your expectations and your non-negotiables. When all else fails, bet on yourself. And of course, when all else fails, and in full transparency, my favorite part, fuck it. When all else fails, plan that exit strategy strategically. If you come to a place, professionally and personally, where leaving is the best option, where leaving is the only way that you will have peace of mind, where leaving is the only thing that will better your physical and mental health, then before you leave, plan that exit strategy strategically. Those are a lot of words. Plan that exit strategy strategically. Update that resume. Get on LinkedIn. Start applying for new positions. Prepare for interviews. You have to make sure at the end of the day that you're feeding your family, that you're feeding yourself, that you're growing in a space. And absolutely, we should never allow anyone to determine our path, our growth. But there are plenty of times where you gotta sometimes be like, this just isn't it. I have tried. I have recognized, I have reflected, I have released, I have spoken to HR, I have done this, I have done that. And when I have found myself in those spaces, it's really because God is removing me. And it doesn't matter what I do as a human, what I do as a professional, how many deals I bring in, how many meetings, what celebrities I can get attached to a brand. It is your time to pivot out and transition. Obviously, you want to make sure that you ensure your professionalism through a process of leaving. You want to make sure that you leave things buttoned up. You want to make sure that you give adequate notice. And ideally, you want to make sure that you leave on good terms, that you've done everything you can do and you have to choose yourself. One thing that I will say, and I stand by wholeheartedly, I have lived through plenty of acquisitions. I have lived through acquisitions where I was bringing in a significant amount of business. But I learned, and I say this in a humble and very blessed and very thankful space, even though at the time in my mid-20s, when I first got let go because of an acquisition, I was devastated. But when I tell you, if there was one job, if there was one opportunity, if there was one door, there will be another and another and another. Obviously, you want to do things the right way. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have exercised all your options. Obviously, you want to take account and do a self-check and say, I'm ready for this transition. But I tell you, in I am living proof of it, that many times we are pushed because we will not push ourselves. Now, personally, you know, as I said earlier in the podcast, I want to believe that in my mid 40s, when it comes to a personal, intimate experience with when someone shows you who they are, believe them. I'm ready to be out. Peace, deuces. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if I can, hold myself to talking the shit. But I do believe in this continuous checking in with myself. I do believe in open lines of communication. And I will say this, after you've expressed your feelings, after you've set boundaries, there's that word again. Boundaries is something that's going to continuously come up in life, continuously come up as you get older in your family, in your friendships, in your workships, in your professional and personal spaces. So after you've expressed yourself, after you've attempted communication, after you have set clear boundaries, after you have been respectful, it's time to transition. This definitely might include deciding on completely ending a situation, on moving forward, whether it's, ideally on good terms or, on just terms, a full break, a full let go, a full I'm out, deuces. Once you establish these boundaries, once you have done all the things that you feel like you could have done, and by the way, I say that in an effort to be someone who is presenting resolutions. I'm also not against you not doing any of that. You not having communication, you not setting the boundaries, you not feeling like you need to communicate over and over and over and over. Sometimes it's just like, you know what? I've communicated this. I've had enough. I have been clear. I was clear from day one and I'm out. And sometimes what you have to do to preserve your mental sanity is end things without conversation. I think that we have subscribed for so long these places of feeling guilty or like, how will this other person feel? This other person will be just fine. The same way you will be fine. The same way If someone did it to you, even if you're completely hurt, you will be fine. Sometimes you have to let go of the guilt. Sometimes you have to make room for feelings that will be hard. In turn, you're doing all this to save yourself, to give yourself a space of sanity. This will create the necessary space for both individuals. In the moment, it may not feel that way, but it does create a necessary space for both individuals, most importantly, you, to heal and move on. When I tell you from a space of quiet, from a space of still in my 40s, feeling like I'm in my 20s and my teens at times, when I tell you from a professional career that has had such damn highs of being on multi-million-dollar yachts in the south of France with Rihanna and Magic Johnson and Chris Brown at the pinnacle of their careers, to finding myself at the lows of lows, in between jobs, questioning everything about myself. I come to you humbly as someone who was in a 20-plus year marriage relationship and had to make a decision to leave a situation that to many people probably wasn't that bad, that to many people would have been okay and settled. So I'm coming to you as someone who has been in these shoes, who has had to make decisions, who has had to see people for who they are, and who has had to choose herself. And I have done it with no guilt. I have done it continuing to learn. I have done it by continuing to move forward. And I have done it by continuing to choose me. When you approach transitions thoughtfully and strategically, there is nothing that will stop your growth, nothing that will stop your success. And the only thing you will be doing is moving away from negative environments. Nothing bad can come from you choosing to move away from a negative environment. Navigating a transition from any category, type of relationship, personal or professional, that doesn't meet your expectations can be and should be a very profound learning experience. You should come out on the other side feeling, after you have gathered yourself, after you have processed your feelings, you should come out on the other side feeling stronger by going through something, by applying strategies, by deciding to choose personal growth, professional growth, by setting a stage for a healthier foundation, a more fulfilling connection, by making room for better in your future. And that goes for work and play. You allow space. And really, regardless of what you believe, regardless if you believe in Allah, Jesus, whatever you believe in, you are making room for those doors that closed to have doors that will open, new, fresh doors. And though you may not see it in the moment, you may not have seen that toxic work environment was really the vessel used for you to transition from a place that you would have never left from. You may not see that this intimate relationship was here for a reason and a season to teach you this or that. For that time period, whatever it was, to have a great sexual experience, to travel, to see a new place, to learn what it is to be with a new person after a long relationship previously, to identify things that you do not want in your future. There is such great purpose in every interaction, and there is such great purpose in you being able to identify in other people good and not so good. When people show you who they are, believe them. Take a moment, recognize, reflect, release. Choose you. Bueno, mi gente, thank you for putting up with this raspy voice. I hope these practical tools and takeaways provide value to those looking to enhance their ability to balance their lives effectively. Yes, I am reading that because that is important to me. My goal will always be to empower you with actionable strategies to achieve a more balanced and fulfilling life experience. As always, remember, life is made of a zillion small moments. Stop waiting for a big crescendo. It can lead to fatigue and overwhelming failure. Start one step at a time. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And I hope you feel encouraged. I hope you feel like you can do anything. And above all, I hope you feel loved.
Thank you for listening to My Mommy's podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Make sure to follow, share, and subscribe. Sophie Robinson on this episode and Rocio Cash Shelton, owner of the Pivot. Love you. Peace out.